Just a reminder, we're here for How PubMed Works, where today we'll be discussing medical subject headings, also known as MeSH. We've got a pretty robust agenda today. We're going to cover 4 major topics. So first, we'll define MeSH and discuss why we use it. Plus, we'll take a look at entry terms. We'll then look at the hierarchical structure of MeSH and talk about automatic explosion. We'll talk about the 4 types of MeSH terms and look at examples of each. And then we will dissect a MeSH record to help you better understand all of the components and how they show up in that record. So, quick overview, what are MeSH terms and why are they useful? MeSH stands for Medical Subject Headings, and it's the National Library of Medicine's controlled vocabulary that represents concepts in the biomedical literature. And this is number 1 on your handout. MeSH is a controlled vocabulary. Because there can be many different ways to describe a single concept, MeSH provides a way to connect possible variant terms to preferred MeSH terms or MeSH headings, which gives uniformity and consistency in indexing and cataloging. So note that in PubMed, MeSH is only applied to citations that are indexed for Medline. As you may recall, if you attended our previous How PubMed Works selection course, citations indexed for Medline make up the vast majority of PubMed citations. So MeSH headings are organized hierarchically into several main branches, and that's where the idea of the MeSH tree comes from. And this is number 2 on your handout. MeSH terms are organized hierarchically. MeSH terms are revised annually to reflect changes in the biomedical literature. And this is number 3 on your handout. MeSH is revised annually. During MeSH's annual update, terms can be added, replaced, or organized in the hierarchy. So let's take a look at a MeSH term. Here we see the MeSH term myocardial infarction. The variants or synonyms for this term listed on the right hand of the slide are called entry terms, and this is number 4 on your handout. The terms that are synonymous or close in scope to the preferred MeSH term are called entry terms. These are the terms that the MeSH vocabulary associates with myocardial infarction. In PubMed or another system using MeSH, we can run a search using the term heart attack or any of the other entry terms on this list, and it automatically maps or connects to the preferred MeSH term for this concept, which is myocardial infarction. It's this preferred term, in this case myocardial infarction, that exists on the Medline record, so this mapping from entry term to preferred term means that searches with any of these terms retrieve relevant results. In fact, sometimes using an entry term can be especially effective because PubMed will search for both the entry term you used in all fields and the MeSH term it maps to in the MeSH part of the record. And that's what we can see here in the eye strain example on the slide. I ran a search in PubMed using the term eye strain. Then I located my search details by clicking on the Advanced tab under the search box, and I scroll down to my history and search details. The details show that eye strain mapped to the preferred MeSH heading, which is asthenopia. This is because PubMed's automatic term mapping recognized eye strain as an entry term. We'll be teaching a session on automatic term mapping this Thursday, July 20th, and it's not too late to register. So I highly recommend this session if you want to understand how PubMed processes the terms that you enter in the search box. And Kate can put a link to the registration in the chat box for that Thursday class. So any biomedical terms that you use in your search, such as eye strain or heart attack, should map to MeSH terms, which enhances your search and ensures that you retrieve the relevant Medline citations. Search details also shows us that PubMed searched for eye strain as well to find other relevant results by keyword. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and try this out for yourself. Go ahead and log into pubmed.gov and search for drug abuse. Don't use search tags or quotation marks. After you run your search in PubMed, go ahead and click Advanced under the search box to locate your search details and check to see how the term mapped. You can do that by clicking on the chevron below details and then see the mapping. So let me know in the chat box, which MeSH term did drug abuse map to? Fantastic. I'm seeing several responses for substance-related disorders, and that is accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and pop into PubMed, and we'll do this together. So I just wanted to make a note that if you are in PubMed, you can access MeSH from any page by scrolling to the bottom and selecting MeSH, which is what I'll go ahead and do right now. So I'm going to search for drug abuse in MeSH. And then I'm going to select my top result, substance-related disorders. When I'm in the record for substance-related disorders, I can scroll down to the entry terms. Here are the entry terms in the record. And towards the bottom, I see drug abuse. This entry term listed here, drug abuse, is why our PubMed search pulled in the MeSH term substance-related disorders, and it retrieved all Medline records that are indexed with that term. So I'm going to pause for a moment and ask folks if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat. Kate, is there anything we need to address right now?
I see no questions yet.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the structure of MeSH and automatic explosion. This slide shows the main branches of MeSH, and the four most highly used branches or categories are highlighted. They're anatomy, chemicals and drugs, diseases, and organisms. And please note that there's a plus sign next to every branch. That means that there are sub-branches. So I'm going to pop back into MeSH, and I'm going to return where I left off, which is in this substance-related disorders record. Remember, again, that you can find the link to the MeSH database at the bottom of any PubMed page. So while I'm in the substance-related disorder records, I'm going to scroll down to take a look at the hierarchy or the tree structure in this record. And you can see that here. You can see the branching that's happening with this term. And you can see it happening in a couple different places. So to find the top level view of the MeSH tree, you can move your cursor to the top and click on all MeSH categories to get a bird's eye view of the hierarchy. And this is the same information that I shared on the previous slide. So here I am at the very top level of the MeSH tree in the MeSH database, looking at the main branches. When I click on the anatomy branch, I can see several sub-branches, such as animal structures and, for example, bacterial structures and body regions. If I were to click into body regions, I can see additional topics such as anatomic landmarks, extremities, and head. And if I look at head, I can see even within head, there are several terms that have plus signs, again, indicating more sub-branches. And this is what we mean when we refer to the hierarchy. As we click into each sub-branch, the terms become more specific. So here I am. I'm going to look under body regions, head, and I'm going to click on the term face in MeSH. As we look at this record for face, and as we look at the overall hierarchy, we can see that face is narrower or more specific than the term head, but it's broader than other terms like cheek, eye, or mouth. So let's go ahead and click on eye. And let's scroll down the page a little bit to look at the hierarchy for eye. We see that eye is in two different branches of the MeSH hierarchy. It's embedded under body regions, and it's also embedded under sense organs. So the next thing I'm about to say is important. We get a lot of questions about it. When you run a search in PubMed using a broad term such as eye, your search will automatically explode to include all of the narrower, more specific terms from all branches. So if you run a search in PubMed with eye, you'll get citations indexed with things like eyebrows, eyelashes, cornea, retina, and all the other narrower terms that you see on this page. And this is called automatic explosion. And this is by design to bring in all relevant results. And that's number 5 on your handout. Automatic explosion includes all narrower terms in your search. So I'm going to scroll up on this record. We're still on the eye record in MeSH. And I'm going to add eye to my search builder by clicking on the Add to Search Builder button on the right side of my page. You'll notice that the term is tagged as MeSH. And remember, because we're searching with a MeSH term, we'll only retrieve Medline citations because those are the only citations with MeSH terms. So let's go ahead and search PubMed, click that button to see what we get. You can see in the results that I've got over 380,000 results, but I'm not interested in all of the specific results of this search because it's incredibly broad. So go ahead and click on Advanced right below the search box and scroll down to the History and Search Details section, locate the Details chevron, and then click on it to expand our search details. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what is missing in our search details? Let me know in chat. What are we not seeing here that we just discussed? Seeing some comments, entry terms, narrower terms, entry terms, all field search, narrower terms. So narrower terms is accurate. We don't see any of the narrower terms below I that we saw in the MeSH record. And this is number 6 on your handout. Will your PubMed search details show all the narrower terms included in your search? No. These narrower terms are included in your search automatically, but you do not see them in your PubMed search details. So I'm going to pop back into these search results, And I'm going to go ahead and sort these. Please bear with me to get to a specific citation on anatomy and physiology of the cornea. I'm going to click in there. Kate also has a PubMed ID to put in the chat box if you would like to follow along in this record. So go ahead and follow me into this record if you would like, and we can look at the MeSH terms that were applied. When I'm in a PubMed citation record, you can either scroll through to see all the details of the record, or you can use the page navigation on the right-hand side, and that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use the page navigation to jump to the MeSH terms section. So notice that you don't see I in the list of MeSH terms. Go ahead and let me know if you have any hunches as to why that may be. Why don't I see I in the list of MeSH terms? Go ahead and tell me in the chat box. I is a broader term. These are more narrow terms. Uses the more narrow term. Cornea, correct. Yes, so the reason we don't see I here is because this specific citation is indexed with the more specific or more narrow term cornea. So our search for I automatically exploded to search for citations indexed with the narrower terms below I, and cornea is one of those terms. So the takeaway here is that you need to check both your PubMed search details and also see the more specific terms by using the MeSH database to find all terms that will be included in your search. And this is number 7 on your handout. Check your PubMed search details and the MeSH database record for each MeSH term. So we are going to practice for a little bit. I have a short exercise for you to reinforce your understanding of automatic explosion, and this will be number 8 on your handout. So when you search in PubMed using the MeSH term fear, what other MeSH terms will be included in your search? Once you have an answer, please let me know in chat. I'm seeing a couple quick responses for panic. Okay. Okay. So for those of you that have found an answer, I have a follow-up question. Where did you look to find your answer? And panic is the correct answer. For those of you that found panic, where did you look? MeSH database. Yes. The MeSH database is the only place that will show all terms that will be included in your search. So let me go ahead and pop into MeSH and show you what I mean. So I'm in the MeSH database and I'm going to look up fear. I'm going to select this first term here, and I can see when I scroll down to the hierarchy that panic is a more narrow term than fear. And so panic will be included in any search of PubMed that I do for fear. So let's go back to our I example very briefly. And please bear with me while I get all the way back there. As I mentioned, a question we hear a lot is, can you limit your search to a particular branch of the tree? And excuse me, I'm actually going to go to the place I want to be. Okay, so a question is, can you limit your search to a particular branch of the tree? The answer is no, you cannot limit your search to a particular branch. By default, all narrower terms from all branches will be included in your search. However, you can completely turn off automatic explosion for a specific term and then add in any additional terms of interest manually. So I'm going to show you where to find that checkbox in MeSH to turn off automatic explosion. So here I am in I. There's a box just below the subheadings section that says, do not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. This will turn off automatic explosion. So I'm going to check no explosion and add this to my search builder. And you'll see that when I do, MeSH semicolon no explosion shows up after I. At this point, you could add more MeSH terms to your search. So for example, I could add cornea like so, but we really like to caution people against doing this because when you use the no explosion feature, you might miss a relevant citation that was indexed with a more specific term. So I know that we just covered a lot of ground, and I'm curious, Kate, if there have been any questions that we can clear up.
Yes, we've had 2 questions so far. The first question, unfortunately, is a stumper for me. Elliot's asking, I noticed that the list of entry terms in the MeSH database, on a MeSH database record, is not alphabetical. What determines the order of the entry terms in the list? And Elliot, I have to admit, I don't know. So I sent that question to our NCBI folks, and if they respond before the end of the class, I'll get you an answer. And otherwise, I'm going to have to follow up with you about what is determining the order of the entry terms in the list on a MeSH database record. So my apologies for that. The second question we have from Maggie, and Maggie asks, does the list of MeSH terms, and from context, I think she's talking about the list of MeSH terms applied to a PubMed record. Does the list of MeSH terms relate specifically to the article, content, or abstract? And yes, the MeSH terms applied to a PubMed citation are those MeSH terms that describe the topics discussed in a significant way in the article. So you should be able to take a quick look at the MeSH terms applied and get a sense of what that article is about. Thank you for your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, so much. Those are great questions. And yeah, I'm just reiterating, reinforcing that excellent question and point you made, Kate, by the article that we looked at. So yeah, the MeSH terms in a PubMed record, as you see here, are specifically indexed for and related to that specific citation. Great questions. Keep them coming. So far, we've defined MeSH and entry terms, and we've looked at the hierarchical structure of MeSH, and we've also talked about automatic explosion. So let's move on to talk about the 4 different types of MeSH terms listed on this slide. And these 4 types of terms are also the answer to number 9 on your handout. So the 4 MeSH terms are headings, subheadings, publication types, and supplementary concept records. So the first type of term we'll talk about is a MeSH heading. MeSH headings represent concepts found in the biomedical literature, and we've already explored some of those together, like eye, fear, and heart attack. Subheadings are used in combination with MeSH headings to focus in on a particular aspect of an article. And this is number 10 on your handout. Subheadings add specificity to a heading. So if an article discusses the adverse effects of COVID-19 vaccines, the subheading Adverse Effects is applied to the MeSH term COVID-19 vaccines. And if you, as a searcher, are looking for citations about the adverse effects of COVID-19 vaccines, you can apply the subheading Adverse Effects to the MeSH heading COVID-19 vaccines. And we'll explore that and subheadings in more detail in a moment. Publication types describe the type of material being indexed, such as a review article or a comment in a journal. And lastly, we have supplementary concept records. Supplementary concept records are also known as SCRs. Most supplementary concept records describe chemicals and drugs, which are referred to as substances in PubMed. And I will show you in a little bit where to find the substance information in a PubMed citation. So let's hop back into our demo. Let's go back to our MeSH database and find an example of each of these types of MeSH terms. So we're going to go ahead and start with headings. There are about 30,000 MeSH headings. So if you'd like to follow along, please feel free and enter COVID-19 vaccines in your MeSH search box. That's a mouthful. And go ahead and click search. So here we are in the COVID-19 vaccines record. The next type of MeSH term that we'll talk about is a subheading. Subheadings are used in combination with a MeSH heading to focus in on a particular aspect of a MeSH term. So there are 76 MeSH subheadings. Notice the list of subheadings here in the COVID-19 vaccines record. These are the subheadings that are available for use with this term to describe articles and citations. If we're interested in finding citations about the adverse effects of COVID-19 vaccines, we would click on the checkbox next to adverse effects and then add it to the search builder. So let's go ahead and do that. I've emptied my search builder from previous searches. I've clicked on the subheading of adverse effects, and I'm going to add it to the search builder. So notice that we have our MeSH term in the search builder followed by a forward slash, which will always indicate that the next term is a subheading. You can actually look up the definition of any subheading in MeSH. So if you are interested or able, please go into a fresh MeSH screen and go ahead and enter adverse effects into the search box. And you can see that adverse effects is labeled as a subheading in square brackets. So I'm not going to pop into that record just yet. I want to let you know that subheadings are also arranged hierarchically and explode just like MeSH headings. So I have a quick question for you, a short exercise. What other subheadings will be included in this particular search? COVID-19 vaccines / adverse effects. Let me know in chat. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of responses for poisoning and toxicity, and that is accurate. So let's go ahead and jump into that subheading record. When I search for adverse effects and enter its subheading record, I see the hierarchy that we've talked about previously. If we ran a search with adverse effects attached to COVID-19 vaccines, We would bring citations that have been indexed with adverse effects and all of the narrower subheadings below adverse effects, which we can see in the hierarchy include poisoning and toxicity. So remember that subheadings can also explode. And this is the answer to number 11 on your handout. Do subheadings explode? The answer is yes. So if you were interested to see all the subheadings and their narrower terms, you could scroll up the hierarchy, scroll up the tree, and select the words subheadings category. And this will show you all of the 76 subheadings in 2023 MeSH. I won't scroll all the way down, but just wanted to show you that this is where you can find them. So let's go back to our MeSH record for COVID-19 vaccines. I'm going to clear what was previously in my search builder for this next demonstration. When we're looking at subheadings for COVID-19 vaccines, you'll notice that we don't see all 76 subheadings here. And this is because only subheadings that are available for use with this specific term in PubMed will appear here as an option. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to check the checkbox next to supply and distribution. If you check more than one subheading at a time, they will be combined with OR, and your results will include records with any of the selected subheadings. And this is number 12 on your handout. Selecting more than one subheading in the MeSH database record will combine the terms with OR, so records with any of these subheadings will be retrieved. So I've selected supply and distribution. I'm also going to select the subheading economics for this search. But just to keep things interesting, I'm also going to add one more limit to our search. If you noticed below subheadings, there's a checkbox next to something that says restrict to MeSH major topic. Go ahead and select that as well. During the indexing process, the major point of an article is identified and the major designation is applied to the MeSH heading or to a MeSH heading / subheading combination that represents the major topic. So when we add this combination of economics and supply and distribution subheadings with the restriction to MeSH major topics to our search builder, this is what we see. We see the heading subheading combinations with the major designation after them. So this is one way to really focus a search. And for those of you who work in academic settings, this can be a really great tool to help students get the infamous, I need 3 good articles on any given topic by tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead once we've built this search string and search PubMed to see what we find. So we should ideally see a results page with just over 280 results. Let's go ahead and enter one of these records together. I'm going to scroll down to number 5, inequality in the distribution of COVID-19 vaccine, a systematic review. And Kate is going to pop the PubMed ID for that into chat if you would like to follow me along in this record. Once I'm in the record, I'm going to use my right side navigation to pop down to MeSH terms. You can also scroll if that is your preference. So notice that COVID-19 vaccines with an asterisk / supply and distribution appears in this list. We told PubMed that we wanted citations with this heading subheading combination, and that is what we got. Also notice the asterisk after the MeSH term. The asterisk indicates that the MeSH term COVID-19 vaccines was identified as a major topic of this article. And this is number 13 on your handout. The major points of an article are marked with an asterisk. An article can have more than one major designation applied to it, as this one does. You can see that this one has COVID-19 vaccines marked as major, as well as COVID-19, as well as health disparities. So I'm going to take a pause for a moment, hop back into my slides, and ask Kate if there are any questions to address at this time.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, we've got a few questions that have come in so far. We'll start with Rebecca's question of, are MeSH terms added by AI indexers, human indexers, or both? And the answer to that is that currently all Medline citations are indexed using an automated process with lots of help from human curation and assistance with the algorithms involved. And I'm going to put a couple of links in chat to learn all about our automated indexing, including an article from from before we started doing it and also a link to a more recent recording of an NLM office hours on automated indexing if you'd like to learn more about automated indexing. The next question that came in was, can you give an example of why one would use no explode if there's a possibility of something relevant? There may be some other examples, but the one I can think of is that the no explode function could be useful if you're looking for a specific topic that isn't yet described in MeSH. So I'm sort of making this up, so you'll have to look up whether there's actually a specific term for this, but theoretically, if there was not a term for something like MDMA abuse, you could do substance-related disorders and not explode it, and you might find the relevant citations about MDMA abuse, but exclude other more specific types of substance abuse from your retrieval. That's just an example. Again, you want to be careful using the no explode function in case there are more specific terms that we do have available that are applied by indexing. So just be careful using it. And then the next question was, if I only searched for COVID-19 vaccines, would it automatically include all the subheadings, including adverse effects, history, etc.? And the answer to that is yes. When you use a heading and you don't specify a subheading, it will retrieve all of the records indexed with that heading with any of the subheadings applied. And then Layla asks, are there any major topic heading lists? So I'm not quite sure I understand that question, but so let me just say, and then you can help me if I'm not getting at your question. Just about any MeSH heading can be determined to be a major topic of any specific article. There are some exceptions. There are some MeSH terms that are not permitted to be used as a major topic. So, for example, I think sex terms like male or female are not permitted because they're not considered significant enough to be a major topic. And I think there are some more. I'd have to look them up. But otherwise, as a general rule, any MeSH heading could be a major topic of an article. I think there may be some more questions in, but we're going to get that to the next questions at the next break. So back to you, Liz.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kate. It's so great to have your expertise in this conversation. So let's go ahead and spend some time talking about the third type of a MeSH term, which is a publication type. So a publication type can describe the format of the publication being indexed, such as a letter, a case report, an editorial or review article, etc. It can also describe the research study method, like a clinical trial or observational study. And it can also describe the source of funding for the research, such as NIH or CDC. And this is number 14 on your handout. A publication type can describe the format of publication, the type of research study, or the funding source for the research. So I'm going to hop back into MeSH, and I'm going to do a new search for clinical trial. When I type clinical trial into the MeSH search box, I see the first result indicates clinical trial as a publication type. So just like MeSH headings and subheadings, publication types are arranged hierarchically in the MeSH database. A search for a particular publication type will automatically explode to include the more specific publication types below it in the hierarchy. So let's jump into clinical trial and take a look at the more narrow terms. So you can see that beneath clinical trial, there are several more narrow terms. If you were interested in phase 3 clinical trials only, that is the term that you should use in your search. So you can scroll up the tree and click on publication type category to view all of the publication types that are available in the MeSH database. So just want to make a note about publication types. Not all of these terms or types are available for PubMed searching. Some of these are only for the NLM catalog. So for example, bookplate is a publication type here, but it's not a publication type that's cited in PubMed. It can be found elsewhere in the NLM catalog. So if you want to know how NLM defines any of these publication types, you can look them up just like any other term in the MeSH database. So I'm going to pop into PubMed again, and Kate is going to pop another PubMed ID in chat, and let's go ahead and search it together. That PubMed ID is 319-20054. Go ahead and search. This takes us to a record titled Effect of Bleaching Agents and Toothpaste on the Enamel, an In Situ Study. And note that the clinical trial label is at the top of the citation. Not all citations will have a publication type label here, but you can find them at the bottom of the citation record, again, either through scrolling down or using your right-hand page navigation. So I'm going to go to my page navigation and select publication types. And here we can see this publication type is a clinical trial. So are there any questions, Kate, that I can answer from chat about publication types before moving on to supplementary concept records?
I don't see any questions about publication types.
Okay, thank you. So let's take a moment and look at a supplementary concept record, also known as an SCR. SCRs are quite a bit different than all the other types of MeSH terms we've looked at. So let's go back to MeSH. I'm going to do that from the bottom of my PubMed screen and type the term Wolframin protein into the MeSH search box. And go ahead and search that. You can see we get Wolframin protein supplementary concept as our top result. So go ahead and click into this record. So I'm curious, when you look at this record, what do you notice that's either different or the same about this record type compared to other records that we've looked at? Go ahead and let me know in the chat. No subheading, no hierarchy. We see something about the heading being mapped to. No hierarchy. Yeah, these are all great observations. So there are some things that are the same, some things that are different in this record. As you've noted, there is no hierarchy. There are no subheadings. We don't see information on the options to, or the checkbox, excuse me, for no major topic or to turn off automatic explosion. We do see entry terms, which we see in other record types. We do see the date introduced. We do see a definition, and we also see this heading mapped to feature, which I'll talk about again in a moment. So some differences, some similarities, and I'll kind of voice over what that's all about. We can look up supplementary concepts in the MeSH database, and we can use them for searching in PubMed. However, supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH hierarchy. And this is number 15 on your handout. Supplementary concepts are not part of the hierarchy. They reside outside of the tree structure. So if you think of the other types of MeSH terms that we've talked about as being in a tree structure, you might think of supplementary concept records as being like a tire swing attached to a specific branch of the hierarchy. There are about 300,000 supplementary concepts in the MeSH database, and new ones can be added daily, Monday through Thursday, to keep up with changes in the biomedical literature. So remember, the other three types of MeSH terms that we discussed are updated annually. Supplementary concept records are updated almost daily. So when we go back to our Wolframan protein record, we know that supplementary concepts are not part of the MeSH tree, but they are attached or mapped to specific branches. And we can see that represented in the record here where it says heading mapped to membrane proteins. So let's take a closer look at how this shows up. I'm going to add Wolframan protein to my search builder on the right-hand side, and I'm going to search PubMed. When I do that, I get over 360 results. So I am interested in a particular result, which I'm going to sort for. This particular result, highly accurate protein structure prediction for the human proteome. I'm going to hop into that, and Kate will also put the PubMed ID in chat if you'd like to follow along with me there. And once we are in the highly accurate protein structure prediction for the human proteome, if we scroll down or use the page navigation, we can get to a section called Substances. You may recall that I said that most supplementary concept records are chemicals and drugs, which PubMed refers to as substances. The Substances section of this PubMed record allows you to quickly see which chemical and drug terms have been applied to a citation. Both MeSH headings and supplementary concepts can be in the Substances section. So just above this, if we scrolled up to the MeSH terms, we see membrane proteins again, which we know is the heading that Wolframan protein is mapped to. But we don't see Wolframan protein because it's not a MeSH heading. So I'm going to hop back into my slides. So just to reiterate, these are the four types of MeSH terms: headings, subheadings, publication types, and supplementary concept records. Are there any questions that folks have at this point before we hop into a full MeSH record and dissect everything we've talked about so far?
Yes, we do have one question about subheadings. And the question was, what are some examples of why you might prefer to use subheadings? And I will say, with almost 36 million records in PubMed, you almost always want to be as specific as possible. And adding subheadings are a way to add that specificity. They're a way to get to the angle of the subject discussed, if you want to think of it that way. So, for example, you don't want everything about breast cancer. If you typed breast cancer into PubMed, you're going to get almost 500,000 records. But maybe you're interested in breast cancer prevention or screening or etiology or pathology. And so you can use a subheading to sort of get at the specifics. There are a couple questions that just popped in, so let me see. So Michelle asked, how did you get to the supplementary concept record? So I think the question is how in the MeSH database you might come up with a supplementary concept record. Here we go. Liz is going to do a demo.
So the particular supplementary concept record that I entered was Wolfram and protein, and I searched for that specifically. To the best of my knowledge, Kate, since there's not a tree structure here like in other records, I can't scroll up to a top level list of all supplementary concepts. Is that accurate?
That is indeed accurate.
Okay. Is there anywhere that I would be able to do that, or do you just kind of have to trust that what you're looking for will show up as a supplementary concept if it is indeed one?
Well, if you want the full list of supplementary concepts, you can go to the MeSH homepage and go to the files. I would not recommend that as a tool for searching because it's just a list. And in general, if you find something in MeSH, it's something usable, whether it's a heading or a supplementary concept. So in most cases for searching, in a way, you sort of don't care that much whether it's a supplementary concept or a MeSH heading, unless you're interested in adding something like, searching for a major topic or adding a subheading, something like that. That's when you might go to that heading map to and add that sort of qualifier to the heading that's mapped.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a question that just popped in about the heading map to feature. Elliot was asking us to clarify that feature. Are supplementary concepts only mapped to co-occur with certain MeSH terms? Well, okay. So when we do associate a supplementary concept with a MeSH term in all cases because we want to be sure that the MeSH heading is, that all of the concepts that are important to describe an article are available. So we do include that heading map to for each time we add a supplementary concept to the database. If I didn't answer your question, Elliot, maybe you could reword it and I'll give it another shot. So I hope that I answered it. And then when asked, is there a better way to enter the search terms in the MeSH database before entering these to PubMed? You can search the MeSH database, add them to the PubMed search builder and search them that way, or you can create your search sort of outside of our systems and then paste it into PubMed. I don't know that there's a better way. But those are our options.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything
We'll
else we need to address? Okay.
We're going to have to come back to more questions in the next break. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I think to that last question, is there a better way? I think it really depends on your search goals and your personal search preferences. I'll just say that for myself, when I'm searching and kind of wanting some maybe prompts or inspiration, I like to come back to this all MeSH categories which you can access from any kind of MeSH term record. Pop back into all MeSH categories, and you can kind of just explore some of the different categories and terminology that might be helpful for your search and the different layers of specificity. Let's go into a MeSH record and spend some time dissecting some of the components. So I am back in my MeSH database, my MeSH search bar, and I'm going to enter heart attack. And please feel free to do so as well. So the plain language term heart attack mapped to myocardial infarction. So we see myocardial infarction as a preferred MeSH term, and then the next thing we see is a definition of the term. Not all terms have a definition, but these are the definitions as used by NLM. The next component we can see in the record is the year this particular term was introduced. This year indicates that you'll get citations going back to at least 1979 in PubMed, and sometimes you'll see 2 dates after the year introduced. So I'm going to give you a quick example of that by searching heart assist devices. When I search heart assist devices, this is an example of a MeSH term with 2 dates. So this means that you can use heart assist devices to retrieve citations indexed as far back as 1986, but the MeSH term for this concept did not become heart-assisted devices until 1990. Prior to 1990, the concept of heart assist devices was represented by other MeSH terms. Then, in 1990, the term heart assist devices was added to the MeSH vocabulary, and at that point, NLM did a find and replace for all citations previously indexed with these other terms and applied heart assist devices to them. So there's a very short video about the 2 dates in MeSH listed on your handout. It's less than 2 minutes long, and if you want to explore this 2 dates, year introduced information in a little bit more detail, definitely check out the video. So we know we can search heart assist devices back through 1986. But what if you wanted to do a historical search for earlier publications? To be comprehensive in your searching, you would want to consider the previous indexing terms when they are included in the MeSH records. And in this particular MeSH record, if we scroll down, we do see that there are 3 previous indexing terms. Those might be helpful to use in your search strategy if you are interested in more historical context. If you don't see previous indexing indicated, go ahead and try the next broader term in the MeSH hierarchy. You can learn more about MeSH changes and PubMed searching in our class with that same name. We have an on-demand version of that in our class catalog. So I'm going to go back to our heart attack record. Back in this record, again, we see the MeSH term, we see the definition, we see the year introduced, and we see the allowable subheadings for this particular record. We also see our check boxes to either restrict to MeSH major topic or to not include MeSH terms found below this term in the MeSH hierarchy. The next component of the record that we covered in class today is the list of entry terms. Entry terms are the synonyms or variant terms that you can use in MeSH or PubMed to be connected to the preferred MeSH terms. If you scroll past the entry terms, Sometimes you'll see a section labeled See Also, and this is recommended terms that you may want to consider exploring as they are related to this concept in an important way. And finally, we see the hierarchy for this particular term, which lets you know whether more narrow terms will be included in your search in PubMed. And in this case, there are several more narrow terms for myocardial infarction from several branches of the MeSH tree that would be included in a PubMed search. So that's kind of a record in whole. Before we get to final questions, I'd like to give you a few minutes to kind of practice on your own. So we've got 2 exercises that I'll invite you to do. The first exercise, true or false. Searching with the subheading therapy will include results indexed with surgery. Go ahead and take some time. Let me know what you think about that. Go ahead and put your answers in chat. And don't think you have to know this off the top of your head. Feel free to use the MeSH database to do some exploring around this. Okay, I'm seeing a mix of answers. I'm seeing yes, because surgery is a narrower term in the therapy terms hierarchy, seeing a couple yeses, seeing a couple no's. So the answer to this question is true. Searching with the subheading therapy will include results indexed with surgery. And this is the answer to number 16 on your handout. To reach this conclusion, you would search for therapy in the MeSH database and then scroll down to the hierarchy and see if there are any more narrow results. And in this case, surgery is a more narrow result of the therapy subheading. So let's go ahead and try another exercise. Go ahead and look up hand washing in MeSH. You'll see that it maps to a term called hand disinfection. How far back can you search with this term? Go ahead and put your answers in chat. Yep, seeing lots of answers for 1982. That is correct, and that is also the answer to number 17 on your handout. The date in the parentheses indicates that the concept of disinfecting hands has been in the MeSH vocabulary since 1982. However, the current MeSH heading that represents this concept was introduced in 2013. And again, that's number 17 on your handout. So I see that someone asked, can you please explain again why the 2 years 2013 and 1982 are listed? And that's because the 1982 in the parentheses indicates, oh, yep, thanks, just answered the question. 1982 indicates that the concept of hand disinfection has been in the MeSH vocabulary since 1982, but a more recent terminology, a more recent term was applied to this concept in 2013. Yeah. Okay. So, are there any final questions that we would like to address before we talk about the class evaluation and how to claim continuing education credit?
We do have a few more questions. The first question is about automated indexing. And unfortunately, we don't have any automated indexing experts with us today. However, the question is specifically about accuracy and applying subheadings. And I think what I can do here is point you to an article in the literature about our MTI algorithm and its success in subheading assignment. So that should actually get you a pretty good answer to your question about accuracy and subheading assignment for right now. But I will also say that automated indexing is switching to a machine learning algorithm this year. And the machine learning algorithm is actually more accurate with subheadings. So we expect to see some improvements in subheading assignment this year. Tanika asks, so to get to this supplementary concept record, you have to type in the drug. Yes, if you're interested in information about a supplementary concept record, and most supplementary concepts are really about substances, we have fairly comprehensive entry terms for drugs, including brand names. So search your drug in the MeSH database and it'll take you to the supplementary concept record describing that concept in MeSH. And then the last question that I've seen so far is from Nicole, and Nicole asks, if they did a find and replace in MeSH, one term for another for the same concept, you don't need to search the earlier terms, and that is correct. And I will refer you again, as Liz did, to the MeSH changes and PubMed searching class. It's available on demand. I believe there's a link in your handout. I'm just going to put a link in chat while we're talking about it. And then another question just popped in while I was talking. Oh, and Michelle, your question is one that's very difficult to answer in a short amount of time, unfortunately. Does PubChem work like PubMed? In terms of search and retrieval, it uses a lot of the terminologies that we're using in PubMed to try to map your search terms to the closest term that's applicable to get you to the record. But other than that, I'm not sure how to answer your question, but I will refer you to our PubChem tutorial, and let me dig up the link for that and I'll put it in chat. All right, I think that's it for questions. Back to you, Liz.
Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you all for your excellent questions during this session. It's definitely, we've covered a lot of territory, and I really appreciate you all hanging in and bringing such great questions to the group. So,
thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.